here in Westbury, New York for another exciting episode of Iron Debate. And if you think you're the biggest Batman fan of all, we have a surprise in store for you tonight. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this Wednesday night for a special episode of Iron Debate. We are joined by a special guest, really one of the icons of the industry, joining us live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are joined by J.M. Manion. J.M., how you doing tonight?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Good. So you want to stake your claim as the biggest Batman fan, at least in this industry? Because we know you have competition.
Yeah, probably in this industry. I don't know if I could say the biggest ever, but unfortunately you can't see everything around the office here, but I'm surrounded by about 20, couple dozen Batmobiles, some different Batman statues, and all kinds of paraphernalia here.
I think you're going to give a lot of Batman fans, this industry and outside, a run for their money. Joining us, as always, I believe tonight he's joining us from Maine. He was in Miami a short while ago, but joining us from Maine, the man they call the Technician, Chris Aceto. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. I thought Aaron Baker has the claim to fame for biggest Batman fan.
But he had to change.
Aaron Baker
name
or Scott Shinnery. Didn't
count.
the supplement guy there from New Jersey? Dave, you know his name, right? Scott Shinnery.
Yeah, I think
wasn't he the big Batman fan?
I think JM's bigger than all those guys. I do.
Well, Chinnery did own the Batmobile for a while there, so he does get props for that.
Who has it now? Who has it now is the question.
I don't know. They just sold it last year for like $4.7 million.
Wow.
I was going to say, JM, you should buy it and use it as like a prop. You could deduct it for all the fitness models. But
yeah, I just haven't posed on it.
4 point something. It might be a bad investment.
Might be a good investment if it keeps going up in value.
And doing a great job for us, as always, behind the controls, Johnny Styles, our producer, putting together that Batman intro for this episode. And, of course, joining me in studio, the boss, Dave Palumbo. Dave, exciting times for RX Muscle, upcoming coverage at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio. We have a lot planned. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about it, and for those that are supporting us in covering the Arnold Sports Festival?
Well, yeah, it's exciting. Obviously, the Arnold is always the first big event of the year, and that's exciting because we're kind of fresh now. We're not burnt out. The year is we got a couple months off, and now things are like exciting to see who's going to be the first Arnold Classic. It's the first big title of the year. Iron Mag Labs is sponsoring all our coverage out there in Columbus, Ohio. We'll be live streaming the Hall of Fame ceremony on Saturday afternoon. We'll be live streaming our pregame show Thursday night from the new arena. And then, of course, we'll be doing our live coverage all weekend long. And then on Sunday, we'll have our special Ask Dave live segment at the Species Nutrition booth. And that's for anyone who's at the expo wants to stop by and check it out. That's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm really excited about this show because I think that J.M. Manion is probably one. I know he a lot of people don't know this, but he's probably one of the most knowledgeable people with regard to our bodybuilding and fitness industry. He knows the history better than anyone because he was there for the entire history of it. And I think that people are going to be surprised when they see how knowledgeable he is on the topics, especially related to what's current in the bodybuilding world.
So with that, we go to our first topic, and this is a question that's been born out of a bit of a debate that actually came from our last episode, that with Sean Roden, and that is the prospects of the bodybuilding division. When you look at bikini, you look at physique, fitness, and really the way that these divisions have grown by leaps and bounds with the number of competitors and the coverage that they're receiving on and off social media. The question is this, J.M. Manuel, we're going to start with you. Bodybuilding, men and women's bodybuilding, is it becoming a bit of an afterthought?
I could answer right away and say women's bodybuilding. I would say yes, unfortunately. It has totally been eclipsed by women's physique, and which I think is one of the most exciting of the two divisions. It's extremely exciting. For me, it's as exciting as the fitness is, like fitness routines and things. And I absolutely love women's physique. And But as far as men's bodybuilding, I don't think men's bodybuilding will ever be eclipsed. I mean, that's what got us here. It's the big daddy. It's always going to be here. I mean, it's still the most popular and most exciting portion of all the divisions that we have. I mean, leading up to whether it's the Arnold, it's the Olympia, the NPC USA, NPC Nationals, really everyone's talking about who's going to be the men's bodybuilding champion, or who's going to be Mr. Olympia, or who's going to win the Arnold. I don't think that men's bodybuilding will ever go away. It's what started us, and it's what's always going to sustain us also.
Let's go to the technician. Chris, what do you make of the way that fitness, bikini, physique has really exploded onto the stage? Do you see that as a bit of a correlation, and do you believe that men's and women's bodybuilding is a bit on the decline?
I think JM's probably the first person who I agree with wholeheartedly on his statement. That doesn't mean he's right. We both could be wrong, JM. But no, I think that I agree that women's bodybuilding, it's on the outer banks at this point. And I like women's physique also. And, I didn't think I would like women's physique starting out. And, I've become a big fan of it. And I agree that it's men's bodybuilding. It's Arnold, it's Haney, it's Dorian and Coleman and Cutler and the Olympia and the Arnold that is the anchor that grounds the IFBB and the NPC. But at the same time, I get fatigued, and I feel that there's a degree of watering down of that when I go to like the nationals, and there's, it's great that there's 1,200 competitors, but personally, that's me. I don't want to sit through, 800 lookalikes, clones of each other. What I mean by that is men's physique and women's bikini and so forth, to get to the anchor, to get to men's bodybuilding, because at that point it's just it's like a waiting game. So, if these other divisions, they're a great addition, but it'd be nice to see the core part of what established the IFBB and the NPC bodybuilding to be focused on more, and to be like the main attraction. Yeah, it's the main attraction, but there's just it's absolutely the main attraction, but there's so much other commotion going on that it just seems like it detracts from, like, now we'll go to the nationals. Who won it? This year it was the Puerto Rican kid, but there was so much going on. It's like I can't even remember his name. But if I just went to the nationals with the men's bodybuilding and women's, let's say, physique, I'd know the top 5 in every division, because I would have had to have paid so much attention. I would have got all the names right.
That, of course, was Alexis Rivera Rolón, the man they called the freaking Rican. But, Jan, we go back over to you. Let's focus on a little bit on the men's side. And really, when you look at the men's physique division and the way that it's really taken on new competitors and so many competitors, do you look at that as a sign that more men, more athletes, that's the look they're trying to achieve? And going forward, do you see that as a bit of a future threat to the men's bodybuilding division?
Well, one thing I also want to bring up is, I'm not sure if anybody realizes, but at the NPC Nationals last year in 2014, had the most men's bodybuilding competitors they've had in the contest since, I think it was 2003. And I mean, there was, I think they said, almost 50 more competitors. Doesn't sound like a big number, but that is huge. And the fact that the men's bodybuilding has gotten bigger again, and I see that growing even more in 2015. As for men's physique, it's growing. I think I think of men's physique almost like bikini, in the fact that it's a little bit more of an attainable look to the general public and what people can do. I think that when you start getting into men's bodybuilding, it's very extreme, and but and it's also like, I've seen bikini. I've seen some of these women that they train hard, but their bodies can only respond to a certain way, and that's as big as they can get. I mean, there's been very few bikini competitors that have gone on to figure. There's a few. I mean, once they start lifting and they enjoy it and they want to lift more, that they've gone to figure. But I think men's physique is going to continue to grow, but I also think it's going to help men's bodybuilding too. And I do have to say that I am surprised at how quickly men's physique came along, especially on the national level. But another thing that I think, like, is Chris was talking about how, you sit there through all the different divisions and a lot of people don't like to watch them, or they get numb looking at, it's almost like the old Robert Palmer Addicted to Love video where all the models look the same across the board. But, I think that I lost my train of thought on that. I started thinking of the video.
Well, just the Robert Palmer reference was good enough.
A lot of like the
we
local
got it.
contests,
It's exactly.
and like even my father's contest, he's doing things where they're having the men's bodybuilding go first, like first in the prejudging and early on in the finals also, just for the fact so that these men's bodybuilders don't have to wait to the very end of a contest to come on at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Now at the nationals, it's a little bit different because they try to make them the star attraction. But I've seen on the local and regional level where it's flip-flopping now, where they're doing figure and bikini last, and they get the men's bodybuilders so they could come in, do their prejudging, rest, and come back for the finals, and they're like maybe the second division. Like they'll start with maybe teenage and then masters, novice, do the open, and then they're done. So they don't have to wait around for the other 2/3 of the contest. So it's interesting for sure. And yeah, that was funny. I started thinking of Robert Palmer's video there.
Addicted to Love. I love the reference. Dave, let's bring you in on this.
I think Chris made a good point, and I think that what happens is it's not that we don't. I like to watch the bikini. I like the figure and fitness, and the problem is it's too much in one show. I think it's overwhelming. I think it's gotten to the point. At least this is my opinion. I believe the industry's got to the point where Happy Days. And you remember when Happy Days just had too many people and they had to like spin off to like Laverne and Shirley? I think
I love the 80s references on this episode.
I think it's almost like I would rather see the men's nationals like on its own weekend, where I could totally focus on men's bodybuilding, maybe women's physique and women's bodybuilding. And then the other weekend, another weekend maybe before or after, kind of like the way they did in the old days when women's bodybuilding nationals was on one weekend and men's on another. And those days, it didn't even warrant it because there weren't really that many people. But I think it warrants it. I know the problem is that we don't have any free weekends because every weekend there's a show, whether it be pro or amateur. But I worry that maybe, these shows are just overwhelming, and to the press and to the people covering the show, even though it's obviously scoring record numbers of people, and obviously that's good for the growth of the industry. My issue is how do we cover it? How do we not make bodybuilding like not as important as it was, because it used to be that all it was bodybuilding.
JM, I want to bring you back on it because this is a point that Dave made on the last episode of Iron Debate, that maybe there should be a separation for bodybuilding and the 212 division, that it should have essentially its own stage, its own date, its own event. Do you believe that might be, first of all, do you think that's a good idea? Second of all, do you see the industry heading in that direction where bodybuilding and 212 may have their own spotlight for a day or for a weekend?
I don't think you can separate them because I don't think that you're going to have enough national promoters that would be able to say, hey, we're going to do all the men this weekend and then the following weekend. And I don't think that people are going to want to stay in that particular town, be it Pittsburgh or wherever, for a full week. I do know that upcoming this year, that Dr. Gary Udit for, I think, both the Teen Collegiate Masters Nationals and the IFBB North American, he's actually moving them to a 3-day contest, with the contest actually starting on Thursday. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to do just like men's physique on one day. Then I think another day is going to be, and I think the men's physique is going to have one of the women's divisions. Then they're going to have just an all bodybuilding day, and then I think Saturday will be the rest of all the divisions. But I just don't think that it's economically feasible for promoters to rent out a space for 2 separate weekends basically you're looking at least a total of 4 to 6 days, if not more, and and people traveling back and forth. And I mean, I've heard them talk about the Olympia, like you're saying, maybe have the Mr. Olympia on its own day, but when you go to the Orleans Arena, or even when you look in Columbus, there are good numbers for the other divisions, but when it's the Mr. Olympia time, that place is sold out. So I think that, again, that men's bodybuilding is still the anchor for everything going on in the industry. And yes, there are a lot of divisions that are there, but do I think they can do it on their own? I think it would be tough. I mean, when you see, I know last year we had 120 total IFBB Professional League competitions. A lot of those were, a pro figure, or pro bikini, or pro men's physique, or pro women's physique, but they were always coupled with an NPC contest. I don't think that on that level you're going to get the audience either, because a lot of these pros are coming from different areas. Now, the contests that they're coupled with, you're getting all the local attractions from people to come in, and mom and dad, aunts and uncles and friends to come see the NPC competitors compete. But these bigger pro shows, I don't think that they would make it on their own, because people are coming from so far away.
Well, Jim, I may have misphrased the question. I want to add, specifically for bodybuilding, for men's bodybuilding, because you did mention at the top of the broadcast that is the anchor right now. That is what brings the level of excitement. So just splintering off into that direction for men's bodybuilding, do you see that, keeping all the logistics and feasibility in mind, that could have its own potential location and stage?
Oh, but I think men's bodybuilding absolutely could. That, to me, that is the one division that could definitely stand on its own.
Dave, let's bring you in on this.
Yeah, I agree with you, JM. I don't think it would be feasible to split off men's bodybuilding with everything else for all the shows, especially there's not enough weekends really to do it. But what about the Mr. Olympia? Chris and I love the Olympia. It's like a love affair. It's like the Super Bowl. The Mr. Olympia can certainly stand on its own. And if they held all the other divisions with the Olympia Expo, don't you think that could be like a 2-weekend type of event? And it wouldn't have to be held both weekends in Vegas. You could hold like the Mr. Olympia in a rotating city, and then have the Olympia Expo and the fitness weekend always be in Vegas. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if it's feasible, but I think the Mr. Olympia is such a popular event that it could certainly hold its own.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it could hold its own, but I just think knowing a lot of the logistics and things, that I really can't get into, just because I know these things because of my father, but I don't think that there's any way that at this point that you could split everything up at this time. I think it is going to be a bundled package, and let's look at this. We've had women's bodybuilding, which now, as you saw, it's not going to be on the schedule in Las Vegas. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be, but that's a whole nother subject that I really can't divulge a lot of that at this time. But like Figure has been around since 2001. Here we are coming into 2015. That you can't put a Figure Olympia, even with pairing it with Bikini Olympia and the new men's and women's league. That's not gonna work on its own. I think it all still has to come down to being with the Mr. Olympia, and everything's like I said, it's a package now unto itself. You have to take everything together. I don't think that anything's ever going to be split up again. Same with the Arnold too. It's just it comes down to the money, the promotions, the logistics, and everything else. Would it be nice to have the Mr. Olympia by itself? I think that'd be very cool, because I was back there in the days when there was only Mr. Olympia. So, but I also think that it's great that look how big the Arnold, the sports festival, the fitness expo is. Look at the Olympia Expo. Those things have grown, and they've grown more because of all these other divisions that are now, has sprung up behind men's bodybuilding.
Chris, let's get you back into this topic. Just as far as for the Mr. Olympia, do you see that as a good idea, and do you think that is logistically possible to have the Mr. Olympia competition, the bodybuilding, stand on its own 2 feet as far as its own event?
Well, I see two options. I mean, I think the Mr. Olympia and the 212 Men's Olympia combined can easily, readily stand on its own 2 feet. I think we all know that bodybuilder fans at their core are ridiculously loyal and crazy. They will travel almost anywhere. They will sell out for an Olympia, Men's Olympia and 212 Olympia. They will sell out any venue, anywhere in any major city in U.S. or Canada. They will travel there. They will spend ridiculous amounts of money to get there. They will pay top premium price if they get to sit in a venue with, instead of 10,000 seats, say 6,000, where each seat has an advantageous viewing locale. I think whoever held it on his own, the logistics, organizing it would be easier because they're not flying in a zillion people, I would think. And I would think that whoever was promoting that show could put a premium on tickets. I just think that there is a extremely loyal, hardcore group of people who will come out to see a Mr. Olympia contest on its own. I think that when people purchase, and this is an assumption, but when they purchase VIP packages like I do for the Mr. Olympia, or I know many, many people who purchase VIP tickets and they've done it for years, they don't go to anything but the men's bodybuilding. And by definition, that's why JM says the place is packed. For the other, people have these VIP tickets and they get to go to all these little things, but they don't go to all these little things. They wait to sit in their VIP seat for the men's competition. That said, if the show is combined, it continues to be packaged together, they might as well just really package it together and really expand it and spread it out and work in the amateur Olympia with it. And like in Miami, where we have, I love how we say we. That's a Brian Williams little statement. How we have in Miami Art Basel Week, where people come from everywhere to celebrate art for over a week. And all the venues are totally surprisingly packed for the full week. That could be done with the Olympia weekend. You could, if you keep the package, the option is, if you keep in the package, just blow it up even bigger, make it a full week. Who would have thought, really? Who would have had the foresight, except maybe Arnold, to think that? How long are we in Columbus for? A week almost already, right?
4 days.
It starts when, Dave?
It's Thursday through Sunday complete now.
Okay, Thursday through Sunday. So Monday night, you don't think people would show up on Monday night for events that were happening at the Arnold Classic in Ohio? Of course they would. So I guess to summarize it, my point is I would love to see the men splintered off. I think that there's the audience there to support it anywhere where it is. Unfortunately, when you take away the anchor, maybe the rest of it couldn't stand on its own. Maybe it would be difficult in terms of selling, quote, booth space for the expo. It may be more difficult because people would say, well, we just went to the Olympia in New York, the Men's Olympia. It was crazy. It was sold out. We did incredible. We're going to pass on the venue you have in Vegas with the bikini, the men's fitness, all the other events.
Dave, let's go back over to you.
I think what the point is valid, what JM pretty much made. Yeah, bodybuilding can stand on its own, but maybe the other divisions can't, and I understand that. So in that respect, I guess maybe you need to keep the Men's Olympia with the rest of the package, but maybe expand it to a couple more days. That might be something that we might look forward to in the future. I think Gary Udit has got it right. And by the way, JM always calls Gary Udit Dr. Gary Udit. I remember one year, and you probably remember this, JM, back in the 90s, I went up to Gary Udit and I asked him to give me an adjustment because I thought he was a chiropractor because you were always calling him Dr. Gary Udit. And he's like, I'm not a chiropractor. JM, he's the one who started this whole thing. How did you start calling him Dr. Gary Udit?
You guys remember the movie Night Shift with Michael Keaton?
Yes.
I love these references.
He said they were love doctors.
Yeah.
I rest my case with Dr. Udit. Well, actually, the funniest part is you'll have to ask him, Dave, next time you see him. His own brother thought that he went and got a doctorate degree and didn't tell him.
Everyone thinks he's a doctor. Everyone, especially the girls, because they have no clue.
Right. So to this day, it's still Dr. Gary Udit.
I gotcha.
As much as he doesn't like it, he's still Dr. Udit.
You're watching Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com, presented by Species Nutrition. You go to speciesnutrition.com. We're going to be at the Arnold in just a couple of weeks in Columbus, Ohio. You can find us at booth 709. Moving on now to the next question, and now we transition over to Men's Physique. And we talked about the popularity of Men's Physique. We talked about the last Olympia, and when you look at the top three, the top four, how similar they were and how difficult it must have been for the judges to really pick them apart. But then you look at how many physique competitors there are on stage now. It's a party on stage. So now that begs the question, does there need to be another division on the men's side? So JM, we're going to start with you on this. When you consider you're going to have at times 40 to 50 men's physique competitors on a given stage, you're only going to have on the first place, a second place, and a third place. Does it make sense now to splinter off into another division that maybe combines some elements of men's physique and bodybuilding?
I'm not a proponent of that, and just so everybody realizes, this is me speaking for me. That I'm not speaking for my father, who's MPC president, IFBB professional league president. But at this point, I think I don't even know. I know there's always been the talk of the classic bodybuilding and things like that, but what defines that? There's a clear distinction between men's physique and men's bodybuilding at this point. And I truly believe that there's a distinction between all of the women's divisions too. I'm always having people come up to me and saying, well, I don't know the difference between figure and physique, and maybe it's just because I've been in this for so long, my entire life, that I can see it, and I try to guide people and give them my opinions and suggestions. But I think right now with the men's physique and men's bodybuilding, and we also have, at least on the pros, we have the 212 bodybuilding also. I think there's a clear distinction right there. I don't see a need for another one at this time. Maybe you could ask me next year or 2-3 years down the road. I might have a different opinion, but at this point, I think everything's pretty good where it is.
Chris, let's go over to you. Given how many men's physique competitors there are right now, and given that this field is only going to grow, does it make sense to have another division that combines elements of physique and bodybuilding?
Well, you know what? If you go back to just a few years ago when men's physique and women's physique started, the physiques were god-awful compared to what's winning today, which are unbelievable physiques. And how many shows have we been to with men's physique where I elbow Dave and say, God, this guy in a bodybuilding show would be crazy, if he looks extremely muscular standing, and a lot of guys don't even look good standing in bodybuilding shows. How would this guy do in a bodybuilding show? And Dave would say, oh, he'd win. And then the guy ends up like 14th. And the point being is whether he's 9th, 10th, 7th, 8th, comes back the next year, 8th, 7th, 6th, 9th, he's got a fabulous, phenomenal physique, and he can't be a men's physique pro. So his options are to come back to the nationals every year and get 7th, 9th, 10th, 12th, or by definition, because there's so many, for the men's physique, there's so many people on stage, it's like, one, it's easy to get lost. Two, it's extremely hard to judge because there's not much distinction between the physiques in a lot of cases. There's so many good people bunched up in terms of like 1st through 7th place, that because the numbers are so big, you have to ask the question, well, why not another division? And it sounds like, crazy, but, I would think that Joe Ida would have thought, if someone came to him when they had men's bodybuilding and women's bodybuilding, which he loved, and said, we're going to do a figure, he'd be, what is it? What do you mean? How are we going to judge it? Why do we want to do it? We have the Men's Olympia. We have Corey. We have, Linda Murray. We're selling out the venues. Everything's going great. Even someone with foresight like Joe Ida might not have thought the need for another division. But here we are. You know what I mean? 15 years later, and we have figure and bikini and men's physique and 212 bodybuilding and women's physique. I think that a natural outgrowth out of the men's physique is, quote, classical bodybuilding. And we've already seen it at the Arnold Amateur Show. And the physiques are very distinguishable from men's bodybuilding. It's like they are halfway between a men's physique competitor and a men's, let's say, nationals bodybuilding successful competitor. And unfortunately, that means it kind of contradicts our last question, because then if we have men's classical bodybuilding and then we have an Olympia for it or whatever, we'll be in Vegas for like 3 weeks.
Well, Dave, let's get you in on this. And there is a second part to this overall conversation. But just as far as men's physique is concerned, and with so many competitors, a growing division, your take on the need for a second division?
Well, I agree with Chris. We were just saying how long the competitions take. The last thing we really need is another division. I agree in that sense. But I mean, I look at these guys up on stage, and I know that every men's physique competitor up there trains his butt off to be up there. They all, primp and proper, and they paint themselves with the Pro-Tan, and they deplete. And, it's hundreds and hundreds of guys. And at national level, you might have 40, 50 in a class, 6 classes. I feel bad for the guy who's coming in 35th place. I mean, because sometimes he looks pretty damn good. And so I'm thinking, I see classic men's bodybuilding. I like the concept of it. Even if I don't really like classic men's body. I don't like the name of the division, but I like the concept, which is for a certain height, you can only weigh so much. So you're kind of limiting the guys by how big they can be. You could say in other divisions, I don't want you bigger than this or any bigger than that, but this is actually physically limiting them by their height and weight. And I think that it's giving the guys a chance who might look better, because some guys, like Chris said, look really good standing there, but other guys look good when they pose and when they move. And those guys are really never going to get looked at, because if they don't have a 24-inch waist, and a great taper, they're kind of out of the running, so to speak. It kind of reminds me of what was happening in figure. A lot of the girls had great physiques, but they just were too big or a little too hard, too dense maybe for the figure division. So women's physique opened a whole new world up for them. Look at Juliana Malacarni. She was 15th at pro shows. Now she's the Miss Olympia. It gave her a home. And I think that, like I said, while I don't want to see the shows last any longer, I'd like to see some of the men's physique guys that don't have a home now, that might be coming in at 25th place. I'd like to see them go someplace and have a competitive arena where they could actually do well, and it might even invigorate the bodybuilding aspect of the sport, because it is a posing type of division.
Well, let's talk about the disparity, JM, in the division between the men that have 2, or I guess 2.5 if you consider a 1A and a 1B between the men's bodybuilding and 212, whereas on the women's side you have 5 divisions. So whereas right now you don't think there is a need for change going forward, do you see there being change in adding divisions on the men's side?
So wait, let me just backtrack a second. So you say the men are like 2.5 men, but is that the Charlie Sheen version or the Ashton Kutcher version?
But see, that's a 2000s. That's not an 80s reference.
That's not an 80s reference.
You just broke the theme.
Okay. As for why there are so many women's divisions, I guess the next question is, how many of us are married? I know I'm married. Johnny's married. Dave's married. Yeah. Don't women always want more?
Of course.
Ladies?
No comment.
That's my answer.
How could you argue with that, right?
Chris, what about yourself? Just as far as just the natural progression of where things are headed right now, do you, even if not a classic men's division, do you see at some point in the next 5 years another men's division?
I think it's going to absolutely happen, and I just think that what's going to happen is you're not going to get 50 guys in the nationals at the men's physique in a division. We're all going to show up one day, and Dave's going to look at JM and say, JM, you give me the list, and he's going to say, there's 150 people in this class. It sounds ridiculous, but look how many people are there in all the classes now. Can you imagine if they just had 2 classes? and then because there's going to be so many people in the class, it's natural supply and demand. There's so much supply of very oversupply of very good men's physique competitors that they have to work their way out somewhere. And I just think that some type of quote other bodybuilding division for those guys is a natural progression. Look, I follow no one on Instagram and hardly ever even go there, but I follow my favorite physique is Sadiq. I can't say his what's Sadiq's last name?
Hadzovic.
Okay, you know how I know him, JM?
Good enough.
I'm so clueless. I'm almost as bad as Jose Raymond, like a caveman when it comes to social media. I get on Instagram thanks to John De La Rosa, and a page pops up, right? And it shows you like all the interesting things. And I see a physique, a guy posing. I'm like, this guy's a great bodybuilder, but he's kind of small, but not really small. But the lines are great. He's striated deep. And I click on it. I'm like, Men's Physique guy? What? You know what I mean? I never thought that Sadiq quote could look like that in the side chest and frontal bicep and most muscular, because I never saw him in it. I just see him standing around with shorts down to his pinky toe. So someone like that, and there's a lot of people like him. They have tremendous, my opinion, bodybuilding physiques. I mean, if we just took his physique and got in the Michael J. Fox time machine and went back to 1985, he'd be cleaning up in shows, lots of shows. So, I think we'll be surprised in 5 years. I mean, I'm surprised. If someone had told me 20 years ago, hey, Chris, they're going to have a figure, a bikini, they're going to have a woman's physique and all the men's physique, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. Stop talking to me foolish stuff. And then here we are, with all these divisions. And they're like we said, they may not be the main thing like men's bodybuilding, but they're enormously successful in their growth. And for promoters, obviously, they've been the best quote thing to happen to promoters in the last 10 years, because now you can go to the East Idaho physique bodybuilding fitness extravaganza, and the guy's promoting a show his third year at the NPC, and he's got like 3,000 competitors and they all bring 3 friends, so he's got $9,000 person gate.
Dave, let's get you back in on this again. We're talking about the natural evolution now of the men's side, the men's bracket, and considering right now there are 2 or 2.5 divisions, in the next 5 years, do you think there will be an additional division, just given what we're discussing right now?
Absolutely. It will definitely happen. I'm going on record right here, and I guarantee you Bob Ciccarello will take credit for creating the division. JM knows I'm right.
I'll put my money on Bob taking credit for that also.
We are going to step aside, but when we come back, which was or is the golden era of bodybuilding? Are we going back to the Arnold era, or are we staying in the Phil Heath era? That and a whole lot more. Iron Debate on rxmuscle.com. We'll be right back.
This is IFBB Figure Pro Heather Dees, and I love my Species ISO bag. If you want to be like me, go to speciesnutrition.com and order yours today. Hey guys, Cassie here, and welcome to Cooking Clean with Quest. I cannot wait for you to meet fitness superstar, legend, and god, and my friend, Billy Blanks.
How you doing, Cassie?
Making some double chocolate chunk taquitos. Does that sound interesting?
Oh, that sounds really good.
Mmm.
This is great.
Figure Pro Heather Dees, and you are watching RX Television.
Welcome back, Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com. An exciting episode. We are joined by JM Manion. JM, before we go on to our next topic, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what's happening over at NPC News Online? What's new, and what do you have planned for the next upcoming weeks?
Well, the first thing I want to do is give major props to Frank Seppi. He's our NPC News Online editor-in-chief. He has done a redesign of the website. If you go there and check it out, you'll see a lot of different looks, and the style of it is a lot different. And he's rolling out some different changes and some other things that we're gonna. I mean, what he's done in a little over a year and a half. I mean, he only came on to this at the 2013. Team Universe, which is now just called the Universe, and that was his first weekend there. But what he has done is tremendous with all the changes, with the features, with the videos, and the look and everything else. And it's going fantastic. I mean, I have a lot of ideas that I wanted to pursue. And Frank's been able to take a lot of them, and plus all of his ideas and ideas with my father and everything else. So it's a good collaborative effort. And Frank and his and also Robert Evangelista worked with them. I mean, they've done a wonderful job. So if you haven't been over there for a while, go check it out. There's it's a lot easier to navigate. That was one of our main things that we wanted to achieve, was easier navigation, and also a lot easier to find out when the upcoming NPC events were, and also to go find the contest results and contest pictures. So those are the main things right now. So again, props to Frank for doing all that.
We saw a good screenshot there of NPC News Online. Looks great. Move on to our next topic now. And you look at the growth of this industry. You look at the growth of the IFBB, the growth of the NPC. But then you look at the other side of the coin. Athletes are losing their endorsement contracts, media contracts, supplement companies going bankrupt. You have magazines suffering right now. And you have to ask yourself, what is causing this? So, J.M. Manion, we're going to bring you in on this conversation. The industry is bigger than ever, more successful than ever. Where is the disconnect as far as the success of the industry, and why so many supplement companies, media organizations, and athletes are finding more and more difficult times finding these revenue sources to really stay in the game?
Yeah, I'm honestly, that's very perplexing, and that's a conversation that I've had with my father, I've had with other people in the industry. I don't know. I mean, the NPC and the IFBB just continue to grow. I mean, I remember probably about 5 years ago, people were saying, "Wow, the NPC has probably peaked in number of competitors and things like that." And we had just introduced Men's and Women's Physique, and again, I don't think anybody thought how big they would become. But like I said, we've had the most number of bodybuilders in a contest at the NPC Nationals. We're selling a lot of tickets. A lot of people are coming. I don't know. I mean, my answer for the print industry is obviously the internet. I mean, that is, people have always wanted. They want it now. This is it. This is when they want it. It's the same thing with pictures. I mean, I do a photo shoot in my studio, or I'm doing a location shoot, and everyone's like, "Hey, can I look at in the back of the camera?" And so I can take a look at it now. And then you're done with the photo shoot, and they're like, "Well, so what? Can you have these to me tonight or tomorrow?" Maybe. It's the instant gratification. I still think there's a place for print. I know we're in a unique position with the NPC News magazine, in that we're not driven by newsstand sales or things like that. They go out to all the members, and the NPC News magazine is a bi-monthly, so it comes out 6 times a year. One thing I want to clarify on that is, a lot of people say, "Well, I don't get 6 issues in a year." Well, the reason is, once you sign up for your NPC card, that's whenever you will start getting them. But that's why we always try to tell people, if you know you're going to compete in the following year, say it was 2015, get your card put your card in November or December, because you know you're going to compete. That's one less thing you have to do, and you'll get all 6 issues because your NPC membership only lasts. It's a calendar year. It's done on December 31st. So it doesn't matter if you join September 1st, your membership still is over. Why not get all the benefits with that? So but we're in a unique position where people still see him. And I was telling my father the other day that I think it's pretty cool. I can go out on social media and I see all these snapshots of people when they get their NPC magazine and they put their picture up and, hey, I'm around the NPC and things like that. Now, when you have the MDs and the Weeder AMI publications, they're driven by sales. And I think that the internet is what's hurting them, because before we used to go to the Mr. Olympia. Well, you'd hope that you got to see, if you weren't there, that you got to see an issue within 2 to 3 months, so you could actually see the pictures. And now you've got the free webcast from bodybuilding.com. I mean, you can just go watch it. Oh, I missed the webcast. Well, guess what? It's being replayed starting tomorrow at this time. So, yeah, I mean, you can just go look at the webcast. And if you want to see more detailed pictures, there's a variety of websites. You can go to our website. You can go to your website. You can go to MD's website. I mean, there's just a variety of different ways, and I think that's what's hurting the print edition. But I don't think that we will ever get away from the print edition with NPC News Magazine, just like I said, because it's a in-house magazine that gets sent to all of the NPC members and about 500 different gyms and officials and things like that. Now, as for the supplement industry, I've been scratching my head on that. I don't understand. And you see so many people, athletes out there promoting their brands via social media, via Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, whatever it is. And I'm surprised. I mean, they have all these athletes that are doing things, but like you said, I mean, somebody like Sean Roden, all of a sudden he didn't have a contract. That's strange. I mean, one of the top guys in the entire world. I don't know. I mean, I'm baffled at the reasoning why. Is it internally? Is it mismanagement on their part? Did they forecast wrong? Did they? I don't know what they did. I mean, but you can always go by a GNC store or a vitamin shop, and you see people in there all the time. I mean, I go to my local GNC to get things, and when I'm in there, I'm not like the only person in there, and there's other people coming in and out, and they're buying different products, and they're buying products that I know from the different companies that we see at everything. So I don't know the answer to that one, and I think it'd be interesting to find out. And plus, you've also seen these other smaller, more independent supplement companies crop up, but I don't think any of them have really sustained for a very long time, and it seems like they get overwhelmed and overtaken by the bigger companies. So I don't know. Maybe Dave and Chris have a better insight into that one.
Chris, what do you see right now as far as why supplement companies, media publications, and really ultimately athletes are suffering despite the growth of this industry?
For me, the main, it's a legit concern for me, is that top athletes aren't being paid professional wages. In other words, there is a net lowering of what men's professional bodybuilding or bodybuilders across the board are making this year versus, say, 4, 5, and 7 years ago. I'm not sure if that's that's an assumption of mine, but I think it's pretty accurate. If you ask around people, how they are doing, their income is not up. Now, part of it is, of course, the magazines are dinosaurs. We've been saying that on the radio before they were dinosaurs. I said on the radio this week, Dave is usually right on things. He's just very early, and he told me in 2009 magazines are going away, or 2008, and it's taken 7 years to see AMI scaled down, MD scaled down, even though they say they're not scaling down. I think when it comes to supplements, it's puzzling. I think, like JM said, there's, I think it boils down to there's not much brand loyalty. And that's another assumption. But I think that if I started my own company next week, I think I'd get a lot of sales for 3 weeks, or 3 months, and then it'd fizzle out. And at the same time, if some guy who's 8th in the Olympia this year started his own company with some backers, maybe seemed like it was going to take off for 6 months and then die down. The problem is all these little companies are vacuuming off net sales from bigger companies because there's not the loyalty to the bigger companies. It's not like when Weta was a dominating force. It's not like when Muscle Tech had everyone under contract. People were loyal to that brand. People used that brand. If they came out with product C and D, people gave it a try, used it. Then they'd come out with E and F. They'd continue with it. They'd have a major income from it, and they'd plow it back into connecting themselves with the top professional bodybuilders. I think this day and age, besides there being not much brand loyalty, I think that supplement company owners are confused themselves on how to measure where their sales come from. They probably all assume I got to be on Facebook and Instagram which is right. But how do you measure? Okay, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we got, X amount of sales this month. How did we actually get them? And because they don't even know, they're just throwing a little bit of cash all over the place rather than at a professional bodybuilder who would be enter into a kind of sort of longer term symbiotic relationship with the company and go out there and be the face of the company, and the company would be the face of him, and they would develop some type of lucrative relationship there. So it's the almost the dumbing down of I don't know where the sales are coming from, and it's leading to confusion. And unfortunately, there's a lot of very good bodybuilders who had good contracts, whether it be in publishing or supplements, who have either lost those contracts completely, or the companies have said, you know what, I heard that so-and-so was let go, so when your contract comes up, I'm going to cut you in half. And it's problematic for professional bodybuilding. It's very problematic because, like I said, nobody starts, Kai Green, when he's 15 years old, starts bodybuilding to be a great bodybuilder, to be muscular, to, for the sport of it, for the activity of it. He doesn't do it so that he can pay his mortgage and pay his, car bill. But once he gets to a certain level, there's the expectation that once I become pro and a good pro, I can make a good salary from it. And if those contracts are going to go away in publishing, in supplements, if prize money somehow does not go up, I think you're going to see a drop off in the caliber and quantity and quality of men's professional bodybuilding.
Dave, let's get you in on this as a owner of a supplement company and a online media magazine. What do you make of just the fact that this industry is bigger than ever? Revenues are up. It's obviously the exposure is through the roof. Yet you have tough times amongst the supplement companies, amongst the media organizations, and ultimately the athletes.
Well, yeah, I think the magazines have become passé in a sense, and I don't think advertisers feel like they're getting the money's worth. And the truth is they're probably not, because there's just not enough people reading magazines anymore. Having said that, I noticed with RX Muscle, and I'm sure Steve Blackman noticed it with MD, even though he claims, I cut back. I've seen a drop-off in advertising and money that people were spending on the online, digital, magazines, so to speak. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, what Chris mentioned, these smaller, everyone has got a supplement company nowadays, and they're siphoning off the money from the bigger companies that have quality products. Also, there's a lot of companies out there that are selling products that are crap, basically. There's protein spiking scandals we've talked about. There's people selling anything to save a dime. And you know what? I deal with distributors every day. They want your products for free because then they want to be able to sell them cheaper to the retailers. And so what happens is all the products get dumbed down, and the companies that have good quality products, have trouble selling them. I've with Species Nutrition, as you know, I've really stood, strong against that, and I've said, look, I'm going to put a good quality product out. I don't care if I might lose a few sales. But then what happens is, you're not making the kind of money you need to support the advertising campaigns on the magazines, to support the athletes. You can't afford to be giving figure salaries out to bodybuilders, and then it's a trickle-down effect. So the whole industry is suffering. You see, for the first time, I think, in the history of the nutrition industry, you see guys like Gaspari having to declare bankruptcy, Ultimate Nutrition declared bankruptcy. I mean, that was unheard of years ago. Like JM said, sales are great at all the nutrition stores. So what's going on? What's going on is what Chris said. There's such a dilution. Everyone is not brand loyal anymore. They'll go and see whatever the cheapest thing is or whatever the newest bang on the market is, and they'll try it out. And then what happens is the bigger, good quality, companies that are out there that are solid are suffering because of that. They can't afford to pay the athletes. They can't afford to advertise, online or in the magazines. And the industry is suffering. And what is surprising, well, not really surprising to me, because change is always inevitable in any industry. We're going to see a reshuffling, I think, in the next 5 years or so. And you're going to see a lot of companies go out of business. You're going to see, I think, a solidification of the ones that do hold out and stick through this whole thing. And we're going to see a big change in the landscape of the industry, I think, in a couple years. The good thing I could say is that the bodybuilding organization is growing, and that's important because that's what's going to sustain everything. And the NPC and the IFBB are stronger than ever, and that means that our industry is strong. It just means that the economy is not good.
Jam, let's get a quick thought on you as far as what you see as the future of the media coverage, and ultimately how athletes are going to supplement their activities and their professional pursuits, in bodybuilding, fitness, and so on and so forth.
Well, I think the future is here with the internet. I don't know what else you could do unless you go sci-fi and you can have your little goggles on and have stuff tapped into your brain. But I think the future for that is here. As for the athletes, I think they're just caught in the shuffle of everything that's going on with the supplement industry. I think when the supplement industry, maybe like what Dave's saying, that there'll be a shakeout in a few years, and I think that the athletes will prosper from that eventually.
Let's move on now to our fourth and final topic, and this one you're going to have your juices flowing. So now we discuss the golden era. Which era was the golden era of bodybuilding? You look at the 70s with Arnold, Lee Haney, Labrada, Gaspari. The 90s with Yates, Lee Haney, Nasser Al-Somebati, Flex Wheeler. The 2000s with Coleman and Cutler, or the 2010s, I don't know if there's a proper term for that, but the more recent era with the Phil Heaths and Kai Green. J.M. Manion, we're going to start with you. Which was the golden era of bodybuilding?
Well, that's almost like you're talking comic books, right? Johnny, the Silver Age versus the new. There's people that like both. I mean, I've been around. I saw my first Mr. Olympia in 1976. I have only, in that time, not been to 3 of them because it was the time when I was in college. But there's certainly a different delineation of the physiques from once Lee Haney retired, and you had Dorian. Dorian kind of bridged the gap between Haney and then the Colemans, the Cutlers, and now with Phil. But if you want to talk about the golden age, I would say it was probably the I like the era with Haney, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Lee Labrada. Those guys. So probably the 80s.
Chris, the technician, Aceto, your favorite era of bodybuilding?
I agree 100% with JM, and the reason is everybody had, not everybody, but a lot of people had contracts, which was great. The level of competition was great. The camaraderie was great. The tours were great. There was a lot of long tours post Olympia where people could make good money. And there was no Facebook or Instagram, so people couldn't see. There was a distance between Nasser, Levrone, Dorian, and Wheeler, and Labrada, and the average fan. Where now the average fan, he can go on a message board or your Instagram account and follow you and say, yeah, you're 3 weeks out from the Olympia, but you look like shit compared to last year 3 weeks out. And it was a more nostalgic time where I think, Dave, you said in the 90s as opposed to now. Now we know we're, 3 weeks out from about 3 weeks out from the Arnold. You can basically find, if you're a little persuasive, you can find out and get pictures from some people out there to find out. I can have people send me pictures of Evan and pictures of Compton and pictures of Cedric, and they're out there somewhere. And in the olden days, quote the olden days, look how in the 90s, you wouldn't know what people looked like until they showed up. So anything could happen. So the suspense was just so enormous. Or like you said, Dave, you could say, JM shot Levrone 4 weeks out. He drove down there and he told so-and-so that Levrone looks nuts. You know what I mean? It put the fear of God, and, someone would get on the telephone, not even a cell phone. Click, 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 click. Call up Wheeler and say, J.M. Manion just shot Levrone, and he said Levrone's at his all-time best, And meanwhile, Dorian's in England with no one has his phone number. There's no internet to go on. He don't care. He just shows up. So it was a different era. And while the comic book comparison is very accurate, for me, I liked that era, and it's probably the era, and I'd like to hear JM's opinion, where the depth at the Olympia just seemed really remarkable.
Jay, I agree with you, Chris. Absolutely. And I remember whenever the black and white shots of Dorian and the socks came out, and everybody was like, they went crazy.
Yeah.
But that was like the only time you didn't know how anybody else was going to show up. But like you said, it was all word of mouth. Like you said, dialing the telephone. There was a lot more excitement because nobody knew what everyone was going to be about. And you're right. I can log off here and I can go out on the web and find pictures of everybody from Dexter to everybody else that's getting in the show. And, I think they're all great physiques. These guys are definitely, they're the new age, the new generation. But when you talk about the golden age, I'll go back to, like I said, the Haney, Levrone, Wheeler era. So
let's get Dave's final word on this. Dave, your golden era for bodybuilding.
Yeah, I think it's right after Haney, because you know what? Haney kind of was like in the league by himself, and then once Dorian kind of took over, I think that's when that would be the heyday of bodybuilding, I think, in terms of physiques go, because your depth was so great with Flex Wheeler and Cormier and Nasser and Ronnie Coleman just starting to come on the scene, and it was nuts, with the level of competitor. And then you would see a Jean-Pierre Fuchs every once, come into town out of nowhere and just shake up these lineups. And to me, that was exciting. But then again, I grew up with that, and so to me, I was like a little kid, starry-eyed. If you really want to talk about what the golden era of bodybuilding is, we've been talking about it all day today. It's now. It's now, because now you can see it everywhere. It's on the internet. You can watch live stream shows. We have 100 different divisions. This is the golden era of our sport, really, because it's evolved to the point where who would have ever expected, even Chris and James, and no one would have expected this, 20 years ago. So I think the golden era is now. I think the physiques in bodybuilding were the best in the 90s in terms of depth. And I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact that maybe there is a dispersion or a different mindset of what, people want to look like nowadays. People are looking more along the lines of I want to look like an athlete. Maybe the bodybuilding is not as important anymore. But the physiques were great in the 90s, but this is the golden era of bodybuilding.
All right, so that's going to do it for the debate portion of the show. What we're going to do right now, we're going to go around the horn. Quick 1-minute answer. Jay and Manion, we're going to start with you. The question is this: most exciting moment in bodybuilding you've seen or witnessed or experienced in the last 30 years?
Okay, this is where I want to make sure Dave could see me. And does he remember this?
You took a picture of me sleeping?
No. Cal Scalak, remember?
No.
Crucified on stage. He felt he was crucified.
Oh, I remember that. Wow. That's your most memorable moment?
There's actually two memorable moments. And that, ironically, it was in Columbus at the Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
The next one was in 1979. I was standing on that backstage there in that side area. Arnold was doing the commentary for, I think it was NBC Sports at the time. And Frank Zane comes off after winning his third Mr. Olympia. And, Arnold and Frank, they trained together and everything else. And Arnold's like, "Hey, Frank, it's great. You just won your third Mr. Olympia. How does it feel?" and all this stuff. He puts the microphone in front of Frank Zane's face, and he goes, "Arnold, it feels almost as good as the time that I beat you." and everyone just stopped. I mean, you could hear a pin drop, and Arnold recovered, because that's the way Arnold is, and he still is. And he went, "Oh, that's great, Frank, blah, blah, blah." But that was the key moment for Arnold's comeback in 1980, right there. And I witnessed it. I was literally 5 feet away.
I didn't know that. I never knew that. Did you know that, Chris?
No, I didn't know that. That's trivia.
Arnold always gets revenge, though. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Arnold, I guess, knew he was going into Conan and stuff, but and it was after that he came back, and of course, he won in 80. There's a million stories on that one, but that was the defining moment. And I remember trying to find my father after, going, "Oh my God, you can't believe what just happened! Oh my God!" I was like freaking out.
Chris, your most memorable moment in the bodybuilding world over the last 30 years?
There was two. There was one, me and Arnold, when we were training in '75. No, that's a Brian Williams, George Farrell. The two most memorable was when Arnold was really, really at his peak celebrity, and they brought in I think it was the '95 Olympia, everybody, all the Mr. Olympias on stage. They've done that after, too. But it was amazing to see all the Mr. Olympias on stage. Plus, Arnold was really at the all-time peak in his career, I think, around that time. And he flew in at the last minute, and he wasn't going to make it. He was going to make it. He wasn't going to make it. And he made it, and they did a presentation on stage. It was inspiring to see that the guy who was at the top of the heap at the time loved bodybuilding so much that he didn't look down on it in any way to not come out on stage with the other Mr. Olympias and just say, even though he did say, "I'm no better than all these guys up here, and we're all Mr. Olympias." And at that same night, that same prejudging, I remember that was the only Olympia I had really front row seats in. I sat with Jay Cutler. He was like 19, 20, something like that, 20. Tom Prince. And Dorian. Dorian has the worst body imprint of all time. Because at that Olympia, the guys were phenomenal. They were so incredible. And when Dorian came out, he just looked translucent. Or is it transparent? Those two words, I get confused. But he looked so heads and shoulders above everybody in terms of width and odd thickness, like through his thighs, even though he didn't have striations in his thighs, even though he didn't have the prettiest thighs, he still had the crazy V-taper. Amazing, using the word V-taper and Dorian in the same sentence, because people, when they see pictures of him, even from like '95, they would say, he doesn't have a V-taper, he's square. But in real life, he was something to see, and that Olympia really sealed him as somebody who was really unbeatable in an era that we call the golden era. So those for me, I envy and am jealous of JM that he's been going to the Olympia since he was 3 years old. Was it since 1970? What, 76?
76, yeah.
Since the bicentennial, since Jimmy Carter was the president.
Right.
So, so you probably have. You probably need to come on Heavy Muscle TV with Dave and have a special interview with all of. You must have more stories than really anyone except your father, Arnold. There's only a handful of people who are, been around bodybuilding that long.
Yeah, because my father was dragging me around from, since I was a kid, even before I was a teenager, I first met Arnold when I was 11 years old, so.
Dave, let's go to you now. Your most exciting moment that you've seen in the bodybuilding world over the last 30 years.
It's hard to pinpoint one, but there's not many things that make my jaw drop. I remember when Dorian guest posed at the Bev Francis Atlantic States. I don't know if JM was there. He might have been. It was at the Hofstra University, I remember, out here on Long Island. It was about
I was at Hofstra. Yes, I was.
6 weeks before the Mr. Olympia, in the 1993 Mr. Olympia. That's when he made these crazy gains from the year before when he won the Olympia. That was probably the best he ever was before he tore the bicep. He was jaw-dropping. I remember sitting in my seat, and I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I was really just getting into it. I had just left medical school, and I watched him walk out, and I said, oh, my God. I didn't think a human being could look like that. He was about 300 pounds. His calves looked like tree trunks. He was more impressive at that guest posing than he probably was at the Olympia, because he sucked down quite a bit for the Olympia to really get dry. But he was just unbelievable. The only other time I was that impressed was in 2003 at the Mr. Olympia. Jay Cutler, I remember, came out. He was the first one out in the lineup, and he posed, and everyone was like, Cutler's going to win the Olympia this year. That's it. It's over. Hands down. And then I remember the last guy to come out, I believe it was Coleman, and Ronnie comes out. He had to weigh at least, I think he weighed 292 pounds, the biggest bodybuilder, biggest Mr. Olympia of all time. And it was just mind-boggling. You couldn't believe that anyone would be better than Cutler. He was so much better than Cutler that you almost couldn't conceptualize what you were seeing. The billows of muscle on his back, and his legs were enormous, and he was shredded, and his glutes were shredded. That blew my mind. I think that right there, that image of him that's when I said that this is the greatest bodybuilder who ever lived.
All right, so JM, we have a couple of questions for you, a couple of questions from our users, and then we're going to finish off the show with a question that Dave's had on his mind ever since you confirmed for this show. The first one, which exotic place would you like to see an NPC show outside the U.S.?
Exotic? Well, I know, Tim Gardner's doing a contest in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
I've been to. I was at the Women's World Amateur Championships in Puerto Rico back in '88, and it was pretty good. I don't know where else. Everyone talks about the Arnold in Brazil. I've never been to Brazil, so I don't know, an exotic place. Does it matter if they have an audience?
No, just pick an exotic place with or without an audience.
Yeah, right. I think, and probably anywhere in the Caribbean. I do like the fact that they're doing the one in Puerto Rico. I think I might have to go back there. I haven't been back there for a while, so I'm going to say somewhere in the Caribbean. All
right. Who is JM Manion's favorite men's bodybuilder of all time?
Wow. Are you talking the overall package as far as looks, personality, or just? There's a lot of them, because I'm friends with a lot of these guys too. Growing up amongst them. And they're all great. I love Lee Haney. I think, Jay and Dexter and Ronnie and Phil are all, they're all great guys. Who's my favorite? How about this? I'll tell you who my favorite was as a kid growing up. It was Frank Zane.
Wow.
How's that?
Yeah, it's funny because you say that because, when we're a kid, growing up, it's such a different mindset. Because I always told people when I watched Pumping Iron as a kid, I was rooting for Lou Ferrigno. I didn't know Arnold won the show. I loved the Incredible Hulk. I was such a Hulk fan that, to me, Ferrigno was the guy I wanted to be. It had nothing to do with maybe who had a better aesthetics or who was the better bodybuilder. I loved Lou Ferrigno, and to me, to be able to interview him and be friends with him now is really like a great feather in my cap, because he was such a big influence on me as a kid growing up.
Right.
All right, so this one is one that Dave has been very excited to throw your way. He's been meaning to ask you this really ever since we confirmed you. So now I'm going to name the names: Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Adam West, Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, and now Ben Affleck. Your favorite Batman actor of all time?
As much as I love the Dark Knight trilogy, I got to go with my homeboy, Michael Keaton from Pittsburgh.
Wow.
I like that.
Oh, that was a shocker.
That is what you call keeping it real. See,
yes.
you have the 80s.
Listen,
the 80s.
The first Batman movie with Michael Keaton, we wouldn't have everything that we have right now. The combination of him and Tim Burton together, they invented this new genre. Even more than the Superman films with Christopher Reeves. The first Batman with him and Nicholson, and even Batman Returns. It doesn't get a lot of credit, but if you go back and watch it, Danny DeVito was wicked as the Penguin.
Yes.
And you had Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. To me, she was Catwoman.
Yeah.
But the whole thing. I go back to the original 1989, I should say, Batman, Michael Keaton.
Dave, is that a bit of an upset to you, or is that what you expected?
No, I didn't. I did not expect that.
Who were you
caught
expecting?
Me by surprise. I thought he was going to say Christian Bale. I did, because it's a much darker Batman. But I actually liked Michael Keaton. But it's almost like you have to be embarrassed to admit that, because people for some reason didn't like him. I don't know why. I thought he was a good Batman. I don't know if I would have picked him as the best, because I do like the new trilogy better. But JM's right. That's the trilogy that started it. Adam West was kind of the Batman he played was a comic Batman.
Right.
So you can't really take him seriously in that sense. So I guess Keaton was the first.
So, we actually just got a great question, JM. This one from our live stream chat box, knowing that you are a Batman fan. If you could choose one bodybuilder to represent Batman's comic book body, which one would you choose? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Let's see. If it was somebody that, considering how muscular they make him now, looking back on it, I would say Jay Cutler.
Ooh, wow.
Okay.
I like Johnny Styles said Tony Freeman. I thought that was a good one.
That's good too. That's good too. But I'm going with the fact, the whole thing with the Bruce Wayne and everything else, and Jay could be a little bit taller, but
you know what this all means.
I see, especially the way, and if you even look at the Frank Miller graphic novels, the way that Batman is shaped, I think if we had Jay in shape, like you said that year at the Olympia, or when he went up and you body painted him, put a black suit on him, yeah, he could pass for Batman.
That only means one thing. Tomorrow morning on rxmuscle.com, there's going to be a Photoshop picture of Jay Cutler wearing a Batman mask. Jam, one last question from me. I've noticed this the entire episode. You have a number 86 in the background, a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. Whose jersey is that?
That's an autographed Hines Ward jersey.
Yes. Okay, see the Batman connection.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yes.
Hines Ward having the Batman cameo. That's got to be the connection. That is going to do it for this episode of Iron Debate. Jay and Manion, we thank you so much for spending your time and bringing it in the Iron Debate.
I loved it. Thank you, guys.
And
Thanks, JM.
Chris, the technician Aceto, as always, phenomenal job. Thank you for popping in on Iron Debate. That's going to do it for tonight's episode. The replay is going to be available on rxmuscle.com. Reminder, Muscle in the Morning returns. All new episode tomorrow morning. Special thanks, JM Manion, Chris Aceto, and of course, excellent job out of our producer, Johnny Styles. I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good night.